Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well today. You may notice by my voice that I am, in fact, not a DSO. I'm Sergeant Yeager, and Adiso has brought me onto this project as a collaboration. I made the artwork for the thumbnail, and I'm the voice that you'll hear, but all of the information, gameplay, and the Deathless Run at the end is his doing, and he deserves all the credit for it. Thank you Adiso for having me, and let's go ahead and get into the guide, why don't we? Executor is a hybrid character, specialized in status effects and posture breaking, which are his two biggest strengths. Thanks to having an S scaling in both dexterity and arcane, Executor can do good upfront damage with dex weapons, as well as proc status effects better than any other character. This includes effects like poison, frostbite, and especially bleed. He specializes in katanas, having an altered moveset. Remember to use katanas one-handed though, since the moveset is faster than two-handed. While two-handed attacks hit slightly harder, his mediocre C and strength results in less two-handed damage than some other characters, as well as status procs being his primary form of damage. Status procs care mostly about fast application, so stay one-handed. He also has an inner ability where, after removing a status effect, he gets a damage and stamina recovery boost. It is a situational buff, but it's good to know it's there. Executor's other great strength is building a ton of posture break on enemies, and the way he does this is with his skill, the Cursed Sword. Unsheathing, blocking, and putting away the Cursed Sword all have deflect frames. Deflecting is so powerful because it builds stagger, similar to normal attacks. Perfect deflects, which is when there are orange sparks, also negate any incoming damage, both physical and elemental. While consistent deflects take moveset knowledge for every enemy, the deflect windows are more generous than you might expect. After 4 perfect deflects, the sword will start glowing gold and you get access to the Suncatcher. This move does good damage and posture breaks easily. It may seem like a bare bones, high damage attack, however the Suncatcher has a few hidden properties. First, the Suncatcher also has deflect frames. Unlike blocking and the other ways of getting a deflect, the deflect frames on this move are delayed until the moment the sword is behind your head. Secondly, the Suncatcher has hyper armor, so even if you don't manage to deflect with it, you're still able to pull off the attack, even if you take a little bit of damage. Lastly, you can evade some attacks by low profiling. Low profiling is when you duck under an attack without any iframes, and because you duck down in the Suncatcher animation, you can low profile some horizontal attacks with good placement and timing. If you miss a deflect, you can always try to dodge, but be warned, dodging while in the Cursed Blade stance has less iframes than normal rolling. Combined with only being able to walk, you can easily get into trouble if you aren't used to exiting the stance at a good time. However, this is a small price to pay for all the upsides that the Cursed Blade has. Don't be scared of failing, because you have to get to really know your enemy before you can style on them, deflecting on a whim. The guard counter is also key to building up stun extremely quickly. After a deflect or a regular block, press the heavy attack to perform a guard counter. Remember that you can't pull off a guard counter every time that you'd like. This requires moveset knowledge. The ideal moment will usually be at the end of a combo string, or after you deflect a single hard-hitting move. Speaking of deflecting big attacks, I call this a heavy deflect. A heavy deflect is when deflecting causes you to do a backflip. While this does look cool, unfortunately, this will push you away from the enemy, making you unable to capitalize on the opponent's opening. However, there is some tech that'll allow you to still get a punish. This might sound convoluted, but trust me, it's not that hard. It's possible to redirect the backflip animation. To do so, after a heavy deflect, remove your lock-on, input backwards with the left thumbstick, lock back onto the enemy, and then press the heavy attack for the guard counter. Here's a clip in slow motion to get a better understanding. Not only is this tech super flashy, but it's very practical for almost any move that sends you flying backwards. I've seen some people say that Executor's ultimate is the worst in the game, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. For starters, you get iframes the moment that you transform, and your health bar is both refilled as well as lengthened greatly. You also get a completely new moveset, a 5-hit light attack string, a 3-hit heavy attack string, a roar that can be done with the guard button, a jump attack with a shockwave, and then the Crucible Claw that can be done with the Ash of War button. During this form you also gain hyper armor. Keep in mind though that if you get hit too many times you will stagger. The transformation lasts around 15 to 17 seconds, but you can end the transformation early by inputting the ultimate again. All of your attacks will knock down most regular mobs and have infinite stun lock on small, medium, and even some elite enemies. A couple examples include the Elder Lion and the Tree Sentinel. Lastly, the Crucible Claw is the strongest attack at your disposal. It not only does high damage and posture damage, but it will interrupt any Nightlord or boss in the game, just like Iron Eye's ultimate. Remember that this move is slow, it leaves you vulnerable and immediately ends the transformation. However, while situational, it is possible to cancel this move and get 2 Crucible Claws in one transformation. I'll show a clip here. Keep in mind that this is extremely situational. You need to be in the falling animation to cancel the move. Optimal Executor play looks quite different based on if you're playing solo or with a team. In single player, making use of everything we've covered thus far is the way to go. Get used to deflecting, posture breaking enemies, and doing tons of damage with status procs and the beast mode. In a team of 3, however, deflecting is much less important. Breaking posture is way harder in multiplayer, so using the Curse Blade as a way of defending yourself from damage is more practical. Your main role in a team is status procking as much as humanly possible. That, and keeping the aggro of enemies to safeguard the characters with less health. This is the current build I'm using. The key relic here is the Knight of the Miasma. Not only does your starting weapon now have bleed and frost, but every time you freeze an opponent you turn invisible for a couple seconds, de-aggroing the enemy and being able to pull off a fully charged heavy attack, backstab, or any other usually high risk attack. The other 2 are Knight of the Baron and this relic that I got that increases damage against frostbitten enemies. Both variations of the Knight of the Baron relic increase critical hit damage, and the normal one also increases stamina regen as well as gives you access to the beast mode faster. And the relic with the frostbitten enemy effect allows you to do some more damage, even when the Cursed Blade or the beast mode is what's being used. Some other good effects to go for are improved katana damage, damage increased when you have 3 or more katanas, the roar healing effect for co-op, starting Ash of War being Flaming Strike or any other useful Ash based on the Nightlord's weakness, and of course, the Everjail buff. The next section will be the Deathless Run. I hope you found this guide helpful. I want people to see how powerful and fun Executor can be when using all of his hidden tricks. Now, it's time for the solo Deathless Run against the final boss. Enjoy.